as with everything in life, people don't like change. This is especially true when they've been doing the same thing their whole lives. For Formula 1 drivers, they're used to the tried and tested racing format. Turn up on a weekend, get some test laps in, do some qualifying, drive a race, go home. So with Formula 1 trying to change the weekend format, it's no surprise that there are drivers against it. While Verstappen and co have been very outspoken against the sprint weekend format, others on the grid disagree. Today, we'll have a look at what Kevin Magnussen and the Haas team have to say about sprint races, and if we think they're here to stay or not. Let's get started. In the lead up to the Brazilian Grand Prix, the biggest story has been sprint races and whether we want them or not. Well, not us personally, obviously, the drivers and teams, but if they're happy, we're happy, right? The Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache will host this year's third and final sprint race. For better or worse, next year we'll be watching 6 weekends with sprint races. It's a big jump in track time and on-track action in just a few short years. As recently as 2017, there were only 20 races on the calendar. Counting the sprint races, next year there'll be 30. Despite the Brazilian Grand Prix hosting by far the most exciting sprint race in the format's short history, Max Verstappen, Lando Norris and Sebastian Vettel are underwhelmed by the prospect of the final sprint race of the season in Brazil. Traditional qualifying will be held on a Friday afternoon after a first practice session, before a 100km race on Saturday, which will set the grid for Sunday's Grand Prix. World champion Verstappen, who's won 3 of the 5 sprint races held across 2021 and 2022, says that despite the format suiting him, he's still not a fan of sprints. "I don't like it," Verstappen said. "For me, the weekend format I don't really enjoy. I don't mind the one practice and going straight into qualifying. I think it probably is even better for me. I just don't like that there's no feeling with it." Verstappen says drivers are incentivized to race carefully in sprint races, as the reward of gaining a place in the sprint may not be worth the risk of a collision or mistake and falling heavily down the grid for the Grand Prix as a result. "All the time, when I do these races, it's about, oh, let's not have damage. Just make sure that you stay in the top 3, Verstappen explained. "For me, that's not really a race." You can understand where Verstappen is coming from. The benefits of going aggressive in a sprint race are far less than they are in the full race. In Sunday's race, you might make a daring move to try and take 3rd place, gaining a podium and an extra 3 Drivers' Championship points for yourself. In a sprint race, that same move would only earn you 1 point and a place on the starting grid for the next day. The downsides, though, are massive. If that daring move doesn't pay off and you crash out, you then start Sunday's race from the back of the grid. That's a massive price to pay for 1 Drivers' Championship point, especially when the alternative is to play it safe, secure your 4th place finish in the sprint, bag 5 championship points and 4th on the grid on Sunday. So why is Kevin Magnussen saying he's in favour of them? Magnussen has spoken in favour of the format after enjoying positive outcomes from the previous 2 events at Imola and the Red Bull Ring. "I think we've done well. We've scored points at every sprint so far, and I actually quite like those weekends where you get into serious business quickly," said the Haas driver. 3 practice sessions are actually a lot, and these weekends show that you can get ready for qualifying with 1 practice. It's the same for everyone. You deal with it. It becomes normal. Despite his liking for the format, Magnussen conceded it's not without its flaws. "I think next year is good, but of course the workload for the team in the garage during these weekends is very high," he added. "From a driving perspective, it's very cool. Of course, the opinion of the drivers is incredibly important. After all, they are the ones having to drive, and it is their interviews that get broadcast around the world. So when Max Verstappen or Lando Norris or Lewis Hamilton say they don't enjoy it, fans listen and their opinion is influenced by that. When Kevin Magnussen says he does like it, people listen to that as well. Maybe not quite as many as listen to Max and Lewis, but you get the point. Unfortunately for them, they aren't the only people whose opinions matter. At the end of the day, Formula 1 is a spectator sport. It's an entertainment product to be sold to fans worldwide. And as fans, we watch the sport to see Formula 1 cars racing. Anyone who's been to a Friday practice day as a fan can attest. Without anything on the line at that point, the experience is as close as it comes to simply watching Formula 1 cars drive around for lap after lap. No matter how impressive the machinery is, or how much we love to see our favourite driver or teams, we are only there on Friday because it was included in the ticket price. As a result, having qualifying on a Friday with genuine stakes attached adds to the fans' experience and makes the product more marketable. It isn't just race-going fans whom this makes a difference for though. The bigger money for Formula 1 comes with those watching on TV, and the Friday sprint helps viewer numbers as well. Even as someone who watches Formula 1 as part of my job, Friday practice is normally pretty boring. The times rarely mean anything. The Saturday practice before qualifying is different though. The teams are pushing to get everything dialed in for qualifying in the afternoon. When the sprint race is on, I'll watch both Friday sessions because they mean something. I'm sure I'm not alone in that, am I? The sprint race doesn't fix everything though. Sure, the Friday is more exciting, but the Saturday practice is completely worthless. Teams can't make setup changes between the qualifying and the race. The only reason they have to go out on track is to get some race stint data, seeing how the tyres behave around the circuit over longer runs. No one's pushing though, as they don't want to waste mileage or make a mistake that might rule them out of the sprint race. Gunther Steiner has proposed a change to how the weekends are structured to make the Saturday practice have meaning though. At present, Friday's qualifying session sets the grid for Saturday's sprint race, which in turn decides the starting order for the Grand Prix. What I'd like even more is having qualifying for the sprint on Friday and qualifying for the main race on Sunday morning, as the free practice currently isn't very meaningful for anyone, said Steiner. Then on Saturday afternoon, you have the sprint, followed by the main event on Sunday. Steiner believes the new format, which has been used 6 times since it was introduced last year, is an improvement on the whole. This year in Austria, we scored points in both the sprint and in the main race, so for sure, I like that, said the Haas team principal. It's a race like any other, but it's shorter and with 8 drivers rather than 10 scoring points. I'm in favour of more sprints, as it makes the overall race weekend interesting by having qualifying on Friday. If Gunther's idea for the weekend was put in place, we could have 5 exciting and meaningful sessions over the weekend. The fan experience would be incredible, not just for those watching at the track, but for those at home as well. And in the end, that is what really matters. There are pros and cons to changing the format, and you can understand some of the drivers' reluctance to have the format changed. But as far as I'm concerned, from a fan perspective, anything that improves the viewing experience is a good thing. So yeah, you tell them, K-Mag, bring on the sprint races. Are you excited for more sprint races, or do you prefer the old format? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below, and until next time, drive safe and bye for now.